Hi everyone. Hope you had a really nice day so far joining us Women in Tech Sweden in this new digital world. I'm so happy to be hosting a focus session here today, and we are sending from our office here in Solna in Stockholm today. So our focus session, the theme is why most of Sweden's current digital solutions fail to include all citizens, and what can we do about it? So, all of you are listening, why should you care about this? Well, there are some statistics and some analysis have been made that in 3 years from now, Sweden might be completely cashless. So that is really something that affects everyone in the society. How do we pay and how do we get paid in the future is high on the agenda. And I have some really nice ladies with me here today who knows all about payments and the banking industry and world. So first of all, I'm so glad to welcome Jenny, who's the General Secretary of the Nordic Payment Council. And then we have Nina, who's the CEO of Bankomat AB. And our own developer or UX designer, Linnea. So warm welcome. Just to kickstart this with a simple question. When was the last time that you used cash when you paid for something? Maybe starting with Linnea.
I think that's a really good question, and I had to really think about this. And I probably like a vending machine where I was fiddling with some coins to desperately buy something quite low in value. I can't remember a store that I've been in where I paid with cash, actually.
And Nina, when was
For
last
me,
time?
it's kind of easy because I have a hairdresser who loves cash, and I went to her last Monday, so it's a good place where I can use cash.
And I don't even remember when I used cash in Sweden. So my last thing was when we could travel. I was in Austria skiing, and then you needed to pay cash. So it's an abroad experience the last time I paid with cash.
Yeah, and for most of you that are watching this right now, you might think that it doesn't matter if it's digital or cash at all, but there are parts of society or people that cannot use cash or do not want to use cash as well. We are though seeing that around 90% of our payments is made digitally, and also that the withdrawals from ATMs has decreased with around 20% in 2020. So Nina, looking at Bankgirot, where you are the one that you can get the cash from, how do you look at this prediction on cashless and how do you see your own?
Well, it's dramatical experience right now in terms of the cash going, down in usage. And looking at our business with Bankomat and the machines, that the usage of course is going down dramatically, and under this pandemic the number of transactions has decreased with as much as 20%. And the problem that I feel, because this is unique if you look in the world in terms of the speed and how this is done, is that Sweden is not ready to go cashless. And we're really not prepared. And we can see that there are large groups of people who are not there. They don't want to pay digitally. They're not able to pay digitally. So where are we going from here, and including everyone in this journey? Because I'm really a big fan of digital payments. I think it makes life so much easier, but we really need to get everyone on board, and I think that's the challenge right now.
Yeah, and Linnea, you're working with some of these projects. So what challenges do you see in this kind of cashless society?
Yeah, I think that what you talked about, Nina, with maybe elderly people, they don't want to do the transition. They want to do it voluntarily, and at the moment they feel it's all involuntarily. But I think that one big risk group is actually young people, because digital money is abstract and it's actually quite hard to grasp. And we see that at Kronofogden, the Swedish bailiff, they have never had so many young clients. And it's because of digital money not being accessible, not to us as normal humans, and that's even without like dyslexia or intellectual functional disabilities, but it's actually really hard to grasp the value of money, and their cash has a big advantage. And also, if we talk about tourists, if you come as a tourist or just a visitor to Sweden, you can't actually pay with cash. You can have a Swedish currency as cash, but you can't even pay in government-run museums like Moderna Museet. This isn't ideal at all. I agree completely with Nina. It's going too fast for our own good at the moment.
Of course, there are groups of people that really need to be, anonymous and not leaving a digital footprint because of different reasons, even the personal safety reasons.
Yeah.
So I think that's really crucial that cash is a carrier of unique functions or feasibilities that you don't find with any digital payment right now, both in being able to be anonymous and also that it can be used offline, given that you have cash, of course, in your wallet. But these are features that not even the e-krona that Riksbanken now will produce will meet. So there's really no substitute, and going forward we need to see, okay, can we live without these features? Crisis, in times of crisis or for groups that are not digital, how do we deal with this?
And you also have something today as well as being this bankomat. You also have an assignment that you need to be have these bankomats not too large distance so that people could access money when needed. Or could you tell us about that?
Well, in terms of us working together with the banks, we're part of the bank's value chain, so we see to that they can live up to their customer promise to the customers, but also to the promise they have to the legislators, because as you said, there's a new law starting 1st of January this year that 6 banks have to see to that there are cash in the whole society, or a possibility to withdraw cash throughout Sweden. But of course there's no legislation saying that you have to accept cash in a store or in a restaurant or somewhere else. So I think that's the challenge going forward. It's not whether the banks can provide cash or not. It's a matter of is it the usability of cash as a payment method? Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, extremely interesting. And we also have a case. So if we're looking at the other side, cash could. If we leave the cash and move into digital transactions and digital payments, it can actually mean something positive. We are also seeing, if we're looking at a more global scale, we are seeing that we are doing projects in countries where they only have cash today, but they see that as a struggle and that as a financial inclusion part. So if everyone has a mobile phone, it's much easier to do payments than to maybe go to a bankomat or anything to withdraw money and pay for that. And in some way, the money still needs to be in the digital system, so to speak, in order to pay bills, etc. So for this, we see that there is a need of also improving the infrastructure in some of the countries. And Jenny, I know that you are working close with this questions around infrastructure. So what is the Nordic Payment Council doing? And what do you see, how can a resilient and good infrastructure improve?
Very good, and I totally agree that we need to have services that includes different needs and different groups. But I am always saying that I'm passionate about payment infrastructure. It's so important, and it has been a very good drive for Sweden and in the past also having efficient payment services. So what the Nordic Payments Council is, which I'm heading, is a non-profit member association founded by the 4 bankers association in the Nordics, and we have members then through payments and credit institutions, i.e. banks and other account holding entities in the Nordics. And what we're doing is actually to harmonize and simplify the payment infrastructure in these countries. We come, as we say, from a very advanced and good infrastructure, but it's really fragmented. It's different in the different domestic areas and so forth. So what we are trying to achieve now is to do it to put a standard formats and processes for payments in the Nordic currencies, Danish krona, Swedish krona, as well as Norwegian krona, and also doing it the same way as for euros, implementing a standard called ISO 20022, which is also being implemented throughout the world with payments. Yeah, why is this so important? Because then we get a foundation to sort of base the services on top of. We have a solid foundation. I'm always saying that this is like putting the rails, if you compare it to a railway. So we'll have the rails, so in theory things can flow smoothly. And if we have that solid foundation, services on top, that will hopefully, and will foster innovation. And hence, we could actually develop services that fit more services that can compete, that also can fit different categories in the payments area. So that's what the MPC is doing, and it's a big, good example of collaboration too. This is on a Nordic level. We're cooperating very close to the EPC, which is the European Payments Council, doing the same thing, and this has been working for quite a while in Europe for euros. So that's what I'm doing, and we're doing.
And you talk about a little bit of collaboration, the importance of collaboration as well. So Nina, how do you collaborate with the bank? And how do you look at innovation in
No, I mean, we try to be innovative as to as great deal as possible. And I think, within the cash area, surely we need to be, look at different ways of managing the business we have. And in this market, which is a very, specialized market, but also for other services, because, our mission is really to have an efficient financial industry, and where payments and cash is one of them, and that's where we come from in terms of doing further business development for the banks to be able to collaborate not only within cash but also in other areas. So that's where we're heading as a business.
And the theme for this year's Women in Tech is this power of resilience. So translating that into this conversation, so for example, Jenny, this resilience payment infrastructure, if you say that we only have digital cash and digital money and no cash at all, so what happens if the system crash?
Question. Of course, there needs to be resilience in all the technology behind it, of course. But I still I will come back to that. We need to have different kind of services, and that will create resilience in itself. And I can come back to what you said, Nina. I agree with the feature of cash is very particular. I'm not really sure that we could sort of make it to copy it yet. So that needs to be a bit investigated, and also looking into what are the different needs of the specific groups that you mentioned, Linnea. What are the services they need in order to make it inclusive for everybody? Because that's where we are. In case of having it resilient, yes, of course, but if we have no electricity and so forth, that's a different thing. We also need, of course, to see how that will work. But to be honest, cash, if we don't have any electricity, cash will go back to trading goats in that case, maybe. So this is.
And I guess, from my point of view, with the e-krona that the Swedish Riksbank now is producing, or are aiming to produce rather. I mean, it's a good thought, but doesn't bring any new features. But it brings the Swedish Riksbank into the digital payment market, which is in itself is a good thing, that there is another player with the solidity that the Swedish Riksbank has. So that, I think, is good in itself to really, if we're talking about resilience, that's really
so
good.
have services that can do the same thing and fulfills this mission of buying things. And as you said, Sweden, we are exceptional in the way that apparently we are very, very, most of the one wants to have digital, and it's been shown now during Corona we were well placed in having that. This had been, people didn't want to have cash even. So digitalization is a good thing, but we need to see how we can use it the best way, and then what are the other options we need to have as well. One size doesn't fit all. Isn't that a good thing saying?
No, I think that it might be important to say as well that we don't want to stop the digitization. It's good and it is democratic, just like you said, Michaela. The thing now, I mean, also with notes and bank notes, that's just the equivalent of goats. So maybe we should go back to goats because that's going to be a solid way, and that's the resilience. But so there's no reason to just be nostalgic about cash. But today there isn't, the digital equivalent isn't as good as it should be. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, and also I think that one interesting thing is also who's driving this and who's responsible for this, because we see that again the competition has gone from local. We can only be here in Sweden to really be global. We buy things online, we shop from different types. We see that Alipay in China, for example, wants to tap into the Nordic market, and of course people wants to start pay with their Alipay app. And as you said, the Riksbanken is looking at could you have a digital currency, which I also think that Facebook coming out with this Libra kind of challenging what is money, and should money be in a certain country in a certain currency, or could money be like this Libra, like a global currency? So Nina, how do you see who is responsible for this and who should be driving this development?
I mean, for me, it's quite certainly the government, and we've really, really stern about this, that the state has to be involved. And I'm really happy to welcome this investigation that's now been initiated with Anna Kinberg Batra, who's a well-known person, a very capable person, that will take the lead in the investigation. And they are really taking on the task to investigate what role and responsibility should the state have in terms of payments and where cash comes in, most certainly. And I'm of course hoping that they will come to the conclusion that the state has to take a much bigger responsibility, because they've gone from, reducing their responsibility many years, now slowly looking into this and realizing that they have to step in, but these are baby steps right now, and they have to take a giant leap.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really happy for the government to finally step in, but it's too slow. I mean, you were talking about 2-3 years. That's going to be the time they do their investigation, and by that time we will be cashless already. So we need to, I think we all need to step up our game and collaborate. And I think that's kind of where we see what are our responsibilities as a tech company. What can we do, and what can we do when we collaborate? Because we need to do something now, not in 2 years' time.
No, I think many players in the market, all of us, we feel that we need to work together, because there's something here that should not happen and is happening. So we need to, try to see how we can help out.
Yeah, and how do you see it, Jenny? Should we wait for the government to come with some recommendation, or should we
Of
just
course,
drive this?
I agree with Nina. I welcome the investigation. Could have started earlier, but very, very good, because I think it's a whole issue of the society and where we want to be in the future. So of course, our democratical processes should be working, but at the same time, of course, we need to look into and sort of, I'm not sure if it's called target groups, but look into, because there are special needs and how to solve them. I'm still a big fan of technology somehow, so I think you need to understand what is the problem and how can it be solved. Because there are solutions out there, and we have been a bit busy in doing the digitalization probably and achieved quite a lot, but there is a backside to it, not the inclusiveness. So of course that could be, or that is, and then we need to collaborate because we are good in different ways.
And also with Nordic Payment Council, you're also looking at as you said, standard across the Nordics. Why do you think that is so important?
But I think for anything, this is a way of foster competition and innovation. If you know what you sort of stand on the ground, and what this infrastructure is sort of between the banks and what is called settlement and clearing, and today it depends on what kind of payment you do. It's a really complex thing if you look in the cellar, and that is really not fostering the possibility of doing innovative services. So that's why, and also of course this will then enable cross-border and do things the same way, and thinking ahead, if it's sort of the same kind of foundation all through the world, then the kind of services like Swish, like Alipay, or whatever you use, you can sort of take it with you and use your preferred sort of interface throughout the world, the way we use cards today. But cards aren't international either. That's the problem with the tourists. Sometimes they can't even use their cards here because we don't accept those kind of cards. So that's we need to think of on a global scale in that sense also, and the Swedish government as well as Europe are really thinking very much into inclusiveness through the Eurozone as well right now, because this is a problem everywhere too, being able to pay smoothly, because that's so important for a society to include everybody.
Yeah, and then Linnea, again, moving back to kind of from your perspective. So how do we build these services that are inclusive? How do we make people understand what they are paying if everything is digital?
I think we need to again to collaborate because that's how we move forward. And I'm involved in a project at the moment, which is it has a working name of My Economist, Min Ekonom. It's together with the country board of Örebro, Länsstyrelsen Örebro, and also Folkhögskola in Fellingsbro. So together with the students and Länsstyrelsen, we're kind of building how it should be, because this target audience is young people between 18 and 25 with intellectual functional disabilities. And at the moment, they're kind of scared of economy, and they think that numbers are really unsafe, and they don't like digital. And I think it has to do with the abstractness, and if we can make it more tangible, the way that cash is today, you can really feel how much money you have. You can feel a 5 crown, you can feel a 10 crown, you can really sort of tactileness, you can feel the value of it, and we lack that in digital money. It's far too abstract, and we were talking a little bit beforehand of how many sort of streams of subscriptions and other things that are dripping out of our accounts. We may think that we have control, but I don't think we do. It's far too abstract, and we can make digital money more tangible and better to grasp. I think we can all benefit from it and make like digital cash really better and better than cash, like it should be.
Yeah, exactly. But how do you think we can do that? How can we make this kind of untangible thing in the digital world more tangible for us, or more understanding? And how should we kind of teach our kids like, what is money if they only see that it's something in the phone and you have endless amount of them?
I think that's the challenge we have, and we need to test our way forward, and we need to collaborate. I think that with the Bankomat, I think it's super exciting because you have a very analog way of approaching things. But what is the digital equivalent of Bankomat? What's going to be in 3 years' time if this thing is true that we won't have any cash? Then when Bankomat, what are you going to do? And then it's going to be so I think that collaboration and co-innovation, and like you talked about, that's what we need to build, and we need to do the rails, and then we can talk about what can actually travel on those rails, and that can be several different vehicles.
Absolutely.
So what are you thinking? What is the way forward? So starting with Jenny, how do you see the coming like 3 years time? If we're moving to this
I
cashless.
think we touched upon everything here. It's sort of investigating what kind of services and do the target groups. I also think education, in some sense, you mentioned, and that goes for quite a lot of groups in society. The fear of technology. And I love the television program Seniorsurfarna, where they actually have kind of famous elderly people trying to do things that they haven't dared to do on the phone. And those things, somehow we also need to embrace and educate people. So I think those kind of initiatives are brilliant. And then, of course, looking into what we can do with the services. And I'll try and do the rails then. That's my thing.
Perfect. And Nina, how do you see the way forward?
I think, focus on the matters we have at hand, and then a flexible mindset. And I think, many players need to look into this and work together and see to that we, take the road into the future, and with digital payments and a digital society in a good way. There are many questions to be solved, but I'm sure we will get there.
And Nia, how do you see it?
I think that everyone taking their responsibility. Like if we have the government and they're doing their bit, then we as commercial players, we need to do our bit, because we can all chip in. I think it's also really exciting to hear, Michaela, what you're doing, because like we were talking about Sweden and the Nordics, but we're looking into this on a global level. So the question back to you, what do you see?
Yeah, but I agree. But I think that, of course, building a really good foundation. And also I think that we should see it as a possibility. As I said, if there's so many people having mobile phones and the telecommunication is just expanding across the globe, so I think that's really is the future. So, but I think we have a responsibility, as I said, also as an IT company, when we build those solutions. We are building Swish like apps in other different countries at this moment from TietoEVRY. So how could we think differently when we build those apps as well? It's definitely a responsibility from our side. And I actually remember before joining TietoEVRY, I was working in the banking sector when they made this decision to not have any cash in the bank branches anymore. So I've also discussed with Linnea. We had like this elderly ladies coming to the branch office that would normally always withdraw cash directly. So we helped them to get a card. We walked to the ATM, and then we had some kind of elderly training on how you withdraw money from an ATM, which was really fun. So maybe we should have something like similar, like how do you handle the cash in the mobile application in the same way. So thank you so much. Like, time is running up. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks everyone who's been watching. There is a chat room actually afterwards now. So all of your questions, we have looked at them and we will gather them. And you can keep posting questions and asking questions in this chat room. So please join us there. Thank you so much.